He was the bad boy of British fashion, the provocateur who turned runways into dark fairy tales and sometimes nightmares. To some, he was a genius. To others, a madman with shears in hand. But behind the controversy and applause was a deeper story, one that every creative person eventually faces. What happens when your art becomes a business? Can raw imagination survive when it's measured in quarterly earnings? And does a corporation ever really understand a visionary? Or does it simply try to own one? This is Alexander McQueen, and this is the question he forced fashion to confront. Can creativity and commerce ever truly align? This was the origin, the beginning of a tailor with a rebellious heart. Before the billion-dollar brand, he was Lee McQueen, a cab driver's son from East London. At 16, he left school for Savile Row. There, he learned discipline, tradition, and technique, so he could later destroy them. As he once said himself, "You've got to know the rules before you can break them. I'm here to break the rules, but I do know them." He never set limits for his work. He kept pushing fashion forward.
What makes McQueen so unique was his vision for fashion. He simply didn't believe in limiting its possibilities.
He took those skills and moved into theatrical costuming, learning how to transform fabric into stories. But he was never content to just execute someone else's vision. Even then, he wanted to confront audiences, to challenge ideas about beauty, gender, and power. That urge became impossible to ignore when he landed at Central St. Martin's. This was the rise, the moment when his art demanded attention. His graduate collection, Jack the Ripper Stalks His Victims, wasn't just clothing. It was a statement, beautiful, violent, impossible to ignore. In his own words, "I want to empower women. I want people to be afraid of the women I dress." Isabella Blow, the editor who discovered him, bought every piece. She understood instinctively that McQueen was going to change the industry. His work drew raves and outrage, and as the shows grew more theatrical, the costs ballooned. He never cared about profit. He cared about feeling alive. As he put it, "For me, what I do is an artistic expression which is channeled through me. Fashion is just the medium." He realized that he was destined to provoke strong reactions.
He was making such a statement. He was pushing everything to the edge, and people were either going to love them or hate them.
Early collections like Highland Rape and The Hunger shocked critics. Some called them misogynistic, others called them visionary, but nobody ignored them. There was always something extreme in his vision.
There was always something that was extreme, whether we were trying to create snow or the girls to walk on water or there was a fire.
The shows made headlines and buyers lined up to see what he would do next. Behind the drama was the reality that McQueen's finances were always fragile. Runway collections cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to produce, and without strong commercial backing, even genius could not keep the lights on. That's when Gucci came calling, offering the funding to transform his vision into an empire. In 2000, the Gucci Group approached McQueen with a proposal. They would buy a controlling stake in his brand, fund new collections, build stores in fashion capitals, and launch accessories and fragrances that would bring in real profits. For McQueen, it was both validation and a test. He would have the resources to dream bigger than ever before. But the moment he signed, he also accepted the unspoken reality that every idea would now be weighed against profits. He admitted, "You can only go the way the world's going, but I don't want to go that way. I'm trying to show that you can still be different. You can still have your own voice." The years that followed were a collision between art and targets, where creative freedom was measured against sales forecasts and profit expectations. On the surface, it looked like triumph. McQueen opened boutiques in London, New York, Milan, and Paris. His perfume kingdom became a bestseller. The skull print scarves, which he once dismissed as trivial, exploded into a global trend. Celebrities from Björk to Sarah Jessica Parker wore his designs. Money poured in, and the label transformed from a cult phenomenon into a luxury powerhouse. But inside, McQueen was fighting for air. Every show had to be more spectacular. Every collection had to deliver revenue. Every season demanded proof that the investment was worth it. The fashion calendar left no time to pause, no time to heal, no time to step back. The expectations were relentless. As he once warned, money is the most corrosive aspect of life today because it means all attention to detail is forgotten. He kept creating because he had no choice. He once said that his shows were the only moments he felt truly alive, when every part of himself, anger, fear, wonder, was channeled into something bigger than commerce. But the toll was mounting. Friends described him as exhausted, isolated, increasingly anxious. Even as the world applauded, he struggled to reconcile the demands of the corporation with the demands of his own spirit.
But, you know, that's the challenge. If you don't have a challenge in your work, then what's the point in carrying on doing it?
He was never interested in designing safe, profitable clothes. He wanted to provoke emotion, even discomfort, and he believed fashion had to be about something more than money. Yet in the luxury system, everything eventually becomes a product. Creativity gets distilled into marketing campaigns and quarterly earnings calls. As he once admitted, "People find my things sometimes aggressive, but that's how I see the world." As the brand expanded, McQueen tried to protect a space where he could still be free. He insisted on having the final word on every design. He pushed his teams to the limits of imagination. He refused to water down his collections. But each season required him to prove that creativity could pay its own way. He once compared himself to Icarus, flying too close to the sun.
The fundamental thing is fashion is not to be taken too seriously, and that's what I try to get across. It's not going to cure you of cancer or AIDS, it's just clothes.
In early 2010, McQueen completed his final collection. It was inspired by angels, Byzantium, and the afterlife, a haunting reflection on beauty and mortality. He took his own life that February. When the collection was shown weeks later, models glided silently past the audience, their gowns shimmering like relics. The world finally understood how much he had given and how much it had cost. After McQueen's death, Sarah Burton took the creative helm. Under her guidance, the label evolved. The design softened, became more romantic, and embraced a broader clientele. In 2011, the brand designed Kate Middleton's wedding dress. The rebel label that once scandalized the fashion press was now the official couturier of British royalty. Sales soared, fragrances and accessories expanded. The business thrived, but some wondered whether the spirit of McQueen himself could ever be reconciled with a global luxury brand that had to serve so many masters. McQueen was adamant that no one else should continue his brand without him. To him, the very idea seemed absurd. His collections were never just about trends. They were intensely personal statements, reflections of his own experiences, fears and obsessions. As he once said, "If you want to know me, look at my work, it's all there." Maybe that's the paradox at the heart of every designer who builds an empire. You start by rejecting the system. Then the system buys your name. Your art becomes a trademark. Your vision becomes intellectual property, and you find yourself wondering if the very thing you fought against has now claimed you. In the end, Alexander McQueen proved that creativity can thrive inside commerce, but not without consequences. He also proved that luxury houses need revolutionaries, designers brave enough to confront the industry with something raw and unsettling. Because without them, fashion risks becoming just another business, safe, predictable, forgettable. Yet even visionaries must grapple with compromise. The reality is that every show costs money, every risk demands backing, and every dream eventually has to face the accountants. So the question remains, should corporations protect the freedom of geniuses, or will they always bend them to fit their idea? And for designers, can you ever truly be free? What do you think? Should luxury conglomerates nurture rebellious vision, no matter the cost? Or will business always try to change originality? Because sometimes the most radical thing you can do is stay true to yourself, even when the whole world tries to buy you.